Hello and welcome to this session in which we'll discuss the COSO framework as it relates to cybersecurity. The first thing we need to know is, what is the COSO framework? What is this framework? What does it teach us? What does it tell us? Why do we need to know about it? Companies have to have proper internal control. One way to have a proper internal control is to create your own internal control rules, regulation, processes. That's one way to do it. Or another way to do it is to look at an acceptable framework that everyone uses. And that framework is called the COSO Framework. COSO stands for the Committee of Sponsoring Organization. This framework started in 1992. It has been updated several times. The latest update was 2013. Now, this COSO framework consists of 5 components, which are right here: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information communication, and monitoring activities. Those are 5. And of 3 objectives: operational, reporting, and compliance. Now here it tells you whether they apply to entity, division, business. We don't have to worry about this. As a CPA candidate, as an accounting student, especially if you're taking auditing, you'll need to be familiar with the COSO internal control framework. In this session, we're going to take this framework and apply it to cybersecurity. Simply put, how do these 5 components and 3 objectives apply to cybersecurity? This is what we will discuss in this session, explaining each component, using an example, and apply it to cybersecurity procedures. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com.
Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses, broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today.
So the COSO framework internal control objectives and components offer a structured approach, a formal approach to manage risk and ensure the effectiveness of an organization operation, including its cybersecurity measures. All what we're doing is we're adapting the framework to cybersecurity. We will break down the framework into its 3 core objectives: operations, reporting, and compliance, which is those 3 at the top. Then we will work on the 5 components, which are risk assessment, control activities, so on and so forth, the 5 components. Starting with the first objective, core objectives, which is operational objective. What is operational objectives in the context of cybersecurity? Well, we're focusing on the measures and practices to ensure day-to-day operation. Operational objectives is, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Day-to-day basis to operate the organization's IT and cybersecurity infrastructure. You want to make sure they are running smoothly, efficiently, effectively. And what would this include? This would include protecting against unauthorized access. This is something that we have to deal with every day. As an objective, we should stop people from accessing information that they're not supposed to access. Ensuring data integrity, that's important. That's day-to-day operation. Maintaining the availability of IT services, that's day-to-day operation. So these objectives do what? Aim to prevent disruption on a day-to-day basis caused by cyber incident that affect our whole operation. More practical example, this would include a robust cybersecurity awareness program, letting the employee know what they're responsible for, educating the staff, educating the employees about cybersecurity threat. This is part of our operational objective, letting them know about phishing attacks, social engineering tactics, and what are some safe internet practices. By increasing awareness, what are we doing? We're reducing the likelihood of a successful attacks, therefore doing what? Protecting our operational capability. The second core objective is reporting objective. Reporting objective deals with what? Deals with accuracy, reliability, and timeliness of both financial and non-financial information. Now, when it comes to cybersecurity, the reporting objective ensure what? Ensure that we have control in place to protect data that underpin reporting from unauthorized access, making sure no one is accessing the information that we are reporting, changing the information, or destroying information for us. And this is crucial for maintaining stakeholder trust. Who are the stakeholders? Anyone that deals with the company. Shareholders, customers, vendors, employees, those are all stakeholders. And we want to make sure we're meeting regulatory and legal requirement for transparency. We want to make sure we're reporting what we need to report as far as cybersecurity incidents. This will include implementing incident response plan that include procedures for quickly identifying, containing, and assessing the impact of any cybersecurity breach. And we're going to have a one whole session about incidents report. How do we respond? Part of this plan also would involve timely communication with stakeholders. Again, stakeholders are investors, regulators, customers, practically anyone, about any breach and the impact of that breach on the company's operation and reporting. Why do we want to make sure we are reporting everything? Because this is what's going to help maintain integrity and trustworthiness in the eyes of others, in the eyes of the stakeholders. The third core objective is compliance objective. Compliance are centered around what? Around adhering to relevant rules and regulation, industry standards, especially when it comes to healthcare and banking. And here, that deals everything that deals with cybersecurity. And this could include international, federal, state laws and regulation. Again, industry standard. Meeting these objectives is crucial for avoiding penalties, fines, and damage to reputation. That's the most important. Compliance with what? If we want to give specific examples, adhering to GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. This is if we are dealing with any processes and people and data and for the EU citizens. This involves implementing data protection measures such as encryption, ensuring that data subject rights, and reporting breaches to the relevant authority within 72 hours because we want to be in compliance. A compliance with GDPR not only avoids significant fines but demonstrates that the company's commitment to protecting personal data. So the third objective is compliance objective in terms of cyber security, specifically protecting the data, the integrity of the data. Those are the three objectives. Then we're going to talk about the COSO 5 components. We're going to take each component separately and discuss it, explain it, how does it relate to the organization, and give an example, and how does it apply. And the five components are control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring activities. Starting with control environment. Control environment deals with people at the top. Think of the board of directors. The control environment sets the organization's tone, influencing the control conscientious of its people. It's the foundation because the people of the top, if the people of the top are not ethical, are not trustworthy, then that's going to flow down throughout the organization. That's why they are the foundation of all other components of internal control, providing discipline and structure throughout the entity. Think about it. If your boss is not ethical, then they don't care about ethical standard. Then you may act in an unethical way. There's this studies that was made, and I always like to quote it. There's 10%, 10%, and 80%. 10% of the people are always ethical. They always do the right thing. 10% of the people, they are always unethical. They're just simply put, you cannot trust them. How about the 80%? The 80% follow the 10% on the top. So if the 10% are ethical, the 80% are influenced by those. And that's why the control environment is extremely, extremely important when it comes to internal control. So the control environment reflects the organization culture, values, and environment, setting the tone for the whole internal control. It encompasses things like integrity, ethical value, competence of the people of the organization, their philosophy, and the way management establishes and maintains its internal control. Do they discipline people that violate cybersecurity rules, or do they let it go? So in the context of cybersecurity, the control environment emphasizes the importance of leadership and commitment from senior management towards cybersecurity effort. And this is important. How do we know whether the people at the top care about cybersecurity leadership? Well, we would look at their act. Do they personally sign off on quarterly cybersecurity newsletter distributed to employees? Do they tell the employees this is what's expected of you on a quarterly basis or on regular basis, emphasizing the importance of cybersecurity and the role everyone plays to maintain it? How do they carry themselves? Do they download apps that they're not supposed to download? The organization establishes a whistleblower policy that encourages employees to report any suspicious or any unethical behavior related to cybersecurity without the fear of retaliation. If you see something, say something about cybersecurity. Do they have a policy like this? Competence. Do they hire people that are competent in terms of cybersecurity? They're aware of the risk. They're aware of what's going on, the landscape, the environment. And do they give continuous training to their employees? This tells us about the control environment. The second component is risk assessment. What's risk assessment? It's identifying and analyzing risks to achieve the organization objectives. And here we're dealing with cybersecurity. So this process helps in understanding the impact of different threats and inform the company about the prioritization, because not all threats are the same. We could identify 10 threats, but maybe 2 of them may be high priority, 8 are not. So risk assessment is what's the threats and how risky they are. Are they high? Are they low? What's the probability of that happening? It involves a dynamic process for identifying and assessing risks to the achievement of objectives. So the IT department conduct an annual cyber risk assessment, identify potential threats such as ransomware, data breach, and insider threat. They will rank them and determine what's the likelihood of something happening. Not only the likelihood is what's the probability. Is it 80%? Is it 10%? Is it 90% that happening? We have to impact the likelihood, and we have to evaluate the impact. If that happened, how much is the loss? If the impact is high and the loss is high, boom, that's an important one. If the probability is low, very low, and the impact is high, we're gonna see what we can do. If the probability of something happening is high, but the impact is very low, then we may let it go. It's not worth it. So that's why we have to determine the likelihood and the impact, because we're gonna have many threats. We have to prioritize them. We have to prioritize them based on likelihood and impact. It includes consideration of potential for fraud and the manner in which risks vary under different conditions. Here, we're looking at threat intelligence integration. The organization subscribes to threat intelligence services, which we talked about this, where it tells you about what's going on in the industry, what are the latest threats, so you're aware of your landscape environment. You will do scenario analysis. Regular scenario-based exercises are conducted, which called threat modeling, to assess the potential impact of various cybersecurity events, such as data breaches, distributed denial of service attack, helping to refine the organization risk management strategies. We could also have fraud risk assessment, which basically what special attention is given to internal risks, such as the potential for insider threat or misuse of access by employees. So in other words, are we identifying the risk and dealing with that risk? That's part of the risk of the control environment. The third component is control activities. And the control activities is what do we do on a day-to-day basis, and there's endless control activities. Control activities are policies and procedures that help ensure management directives are carried out. In other words, how are we managing the company? In cybersecurity, these activities include measures implemented to prevent, detect, and respond to cybersecurity threat. Control activities are the actual steps taken to mitigate risks and achieve objectives. So what could they include? Let's look at some actual activities. Approval, authorization, verification, reconciliation, reviews of operating performance, security of assets, and segregation of duties. You might be thinking those are not cybersecurity related. They are cybersecurity related, because if you're following internal control, they directly support the cybersecurity policies and help identify the risk. Examples could also include multi-factor authentication for all system access. So if somebody wants to approve something, approve or authorize, we have to double check. We have to have a multi-factor authentication, making sure that this individual have the authority to give this approval, have the authority to verify, has the authority to reconcile the system. We have to do regular patch management. We have to bring our system up to date, encrypt sensitive data. Those are all control activities that we have to carry related to cybersecurity. Also, automated security control, deployment of automated tools for real-time monitoring could be part of our control activities. To do what? To detect and block malicious activities in real time. We have to have a data loss prevention program or technology to monitor, detect, and prevent the unauthorized use and transmission of confidential information. We're going to have a whole session about DLPs. Regular security audit, that's always the case. Whatever controls you have, you always have to review them. Go back and see if they are still working as effective as they were designed to do. Information and communication, here we're talking about how information about cybersecurity is disseminated within the company and outside the company. Effective communication is crucial for making sure all parts of the organization understand the role in managing cyber threat. This includes both internal communication and external communication with stakeholders. Also, we need to establish protocol for communicating with external stakeholders in the event of a breach, cybersecurity breach. This is to make sure the company is responding in a timely fashion, transparently, and efficiently to protect its reputation. Information and communication involve identifying, capturing, and exchanging information in form and timely basis that enable people to carry out their responsibilities. Also, in the broader sense, flowing down across, up and down across all the organization. So the effective communication must be in all direction, from the bottom up, from the top down, and in between. Examples could be the company create a cybersecurity intranet. Intranet, it means it's an insider site where employees can find the latest cybersecurity policies, training material, and update on recent cybersecurity threat. That's part of informing and communicating cyber threat to our employees. Cybersecurity dashboard, the development of a cybersecurity dashboard that provide real-time visibility. Someone in the company monitoring what's going on 24/7 for key matrices for senior management. Vendor communication, establishing secure communication channels with third-party vendor to ensure that they adhere to the organization's cybersecurity requirement. Are we communicating with them? What's the method? Community engagement, participating in industry cybersecurity forums. Are we involved? Do we send people to conferences, latest changes, the latest technology? Are we learning about this? And partnership to share and receive information on the best practices and emerging threat. This is when we are dealing with all these are information and communication cybersecurity related internal control. Monitoring activities is, as it suggests, monitoring, ongoing or separate evaluation to make sure whether each component of the internal control is present and functioning properly. Monitoring is like going back and looking at everything. Is it working properly? For cybersecurity, this means continuously assessing the effectiveness of all the measures that we talked about earlier. Monitoring activities would involve assessing the quality of the internal control system performance over time. This includes routine activities and separate evaluation with necessary modification. If you see something not working, we have to adjust it. Example would include the IT security team conduct quarterly penetration tests and daily vulnerability scan to identify and address weaknesses in the network. This is part of monitoring. Well, is it working? Let's test it. And if it's not working, let's do something about it. We're monitoring the system. Also, the team review incident responses drill twice a year to ensure that the organization is prepared to respond effectively to cyber incident. Are we up to date? Monitoring activities. Continuously monitoring system. Our IT infrastructure for signs of compromises with automatic alert to suspicious activities. Employee feedback mechanism. Establishing channels through which employees can report security concern or suggestions for improving cybersecurity. This also could be part of information and communication, could be part of the monitoring, because sometimes you want to give the employees the chance to also help in the monitoring process. Benchmarking. Comparing the organization's cybersecurity practices against industry standard. How well are we doing? Monitoring our own performance against the industry, against the peers. And this way, we are staying up to date. Monitoring means looking at everything and are we doing a good job doing our job? You're basically auditing yourself. And that's always a good last step. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. Which activity best represents the COSO framework information and communication component in a cybersecurity context? So we're looking at information and communication. Is it developing a firewall? Is it circulating a memo on a recent phishing scam? Is it performing background checks on new hire? Is it setting password complexity requirement? So here we're dealing with communication and information. What do you think of these four? They're all good. They're all deals with cybersecurity. For example, let's look at A. Okay? Developing a firewall, I would say that's a control activity because you're trying to defend yourself. That's part of your control. So it's not information and communication. We can take it out. Circulating a memo on recent phishing attack, a phishing scam or attack. What does that mean? It means is you're informing the employees about cybersecurity threat. I would say this is a good answer choice, but again, you don't want to choose it immediately. We want to wait. Performing background checks on new hires. Is this a good internal control? Yes, it's a good internal control. It may not be related directly to cybersecurity, but it's a good internal control when it comes to control environment. It means you're hiring competent people, ethical people. So, but it has nothing to do with cybersecurity directly because it's cybersecurity context. Setting password complexity requirement. That's an excellent cybersecurity control, but it has nothing to do with information and communication. It has to do with controlled environment, making sure we have steps that protect our system, which is setting up steps to inform of control activities. Therefore, as we predicted, B is the best answer. Circulating a memo informing employees about recent phishing scam. What should you do? Now you want to go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs. That's going to help you. Whether you're studying for your CPA exam, taking accounting courses, or any other professional certification. Invest in yourself. Good luck, study hard, and of course, stay safe.